Hi, Katerina. How are you?
I'm doing really well, thank you. How are you?
I am good. This is Melinda. I welcome to Day 3 Virtual Summit 2026. So,
Yes,
how is your day today? Are you enjoying? Our first session was completed by Catherine. So, yours is the second session. And so, I would give introduction of yours. So, Katerina has already shared her QR code. So please do join in that session so everyone can join. So yeah, so welcome Katerina Kozias on stage. So Katerina Kozias is a premium transformational expert and founder of Cherish Smart Communications, specializing in communications, language patterning, and transformative leadership. A dynamic two-time published author and professionally trained media personality. She has presented internationally in cities including Miami, New York, Hong Kong, Athens, and Dubai, known as America's Media Mindset Mentor. She is fluent in English and Greek, speaks conversational French, and actively contributes to radio, media, and global business association. She is from United States of America. So welcome Catherine on stage. We are so much interested and excited to listen your presentation today. So the stage is all yours.
perfect. Thank you, Melinda, and good day to everybody. Can you hear me clearly? I was having a little bit of a connection issue, so I'd like to make sure that you can hear me clearly and see me clearly as well. If you can, please put a yes or a thumbs up into the chat box. And hello, Colette. I appreciate the warm welcome. It is a little bit before the hour, and we are here as a global community on video conferencing because this is the way the world has accelerated to date. How many of you were born before the year 1980? If you were born before the year 1980, please put your hand up for me. Okay, excellent. Thank you. If you were born after the year 1980, please put your hand up. All right. Well, those of you, thank you, who were born before the year 1980, you may remember something called an attention span. That's right. Back before the invention of the iPhone, we would have the ability as humans to meet with each other and actually pay attention. This, of course, into the 2000s started to diminish slightly, and by 2010, again, mostly with the onset of the BlackBerry and the iPhone, attention spans started becoming even slower. Does anyone know what the average attention span for a person in 2026 is? Any ideas? Any guesses? It is 6 seconds. 6 seconds. We now have 6 seconds to make that initial impression, to capture someone's attention before they scroll on to the next thing. Or even back in the day, we would meet at a supermarket and we would be able to hold a conversation without looking around at the various shiny objects around us. So, on that note, as Melinda mentioned, my name is Katerina Kazayas. I am a premium transformational leading expert in my space of media and communications. And as somebody who has spent many years in Hollywood, both in front of the camera and behind, I have very deep insight into how to leverage communication and the space of media for your benefit. Now, how many of you out there understand that communication is important? Well, I'd like to tell you, communication is everything. And I'm going to piggyback a little bit off of Carolyn Mauti's um, presentation. She had a final question that had said, how can you reclaim your power as a woman? How can you reclaim your voice? And this is a perfect segue into what we're going to be talking about today. And the answer to that, her answer was with honesty. My answer is with authenticity. We are now living in a world that is fractured. Our attention is being pulled at. People are skeptical. How many of you are being oversold? Right? We're all being oversold. Please put your hand up, put a yes in the chat box if you can relate. I wake up on a Monday morning and I spend 10 minutes on my Monday morning just deleting, unsubscribing, and blocking emails that came out of nowhere, right? It is a constant bombardment. And it is our challenge as people in business to cut through that noise. And so, what I'd like to share with you today is a brief history on the evolution of communication and also very, very practical tools, tips, strategies, and insights that you can take with you after today's session and apply in the real world to absolutely work on catapulting yourself ahead of the competition. How does that sound? Great. So when we talk communication, people think, okay, we're talking with our words. Yes and no. 5%, only 5% of our words, of our communication comes from our words. 30 to 35% comes from our voice, our tonality, the inflection, the articulation, the speed, the depth, the resonance, which leaves 50 to 55% that comes from, you guessed it, body language. That's right. Is your posture correct? Are you smiling? Are your feet pointed in the right direction? Is your eyebrow raised? And if your eyebrow is raised, wouldn't you like to know what that is signaling to the person on the other side of you? What I'd like to share with you right now is that I started my company, Charisma Communications, Charisma to hit the mark, because I was noticing a trend. I was noticing highly capable people, very brilliant in what they do, very brilliant with their offerings, unable to get the numbers to work for them, unable to secure the higher contacts, unable to really make that mark financially for themselves and their business. How many of you have been feeling stuck? A lot of the clients that we work with since 2020, okay, and it's been 6 years since 2020. Since 2020, people have been feeling and telling me that they are feeling stuck. They are doing and doing and doing, and there's no progress in their business. If you feel like that, please put your hand up. Yes? Part of the reason for that is because the business landscape has absolutely changed. It has changed. We are living in a time where AI acceleration is moving faster than our nervous systems can keep up. And the traditional communication training of the past, where we gave you a script and we told you how to stand and how to use your voice, yes, that's important. And it is no longer about what you're saying. It's no longer even about how you're saying it. Although we will get into that because it is important. The communication of today is about how is your message being perceived. Did you know that 90% of Fortune 500 CEOs cannot effectively articulate what their company actually does? 90%. So if you are running a business and you happen to have subordinates or colleagues, are they articulating the value proposition for your company? And that is what we're going to learn today. We're going to learn some tools, tips, tricks, and insider strategies. In fact, we are going to be opening up the vault of the communication strategies that less than 1% of the population have access to. Put a yes in the comments if that sounds exciting to you. Excellent. The communication of the future is going to be imperative that we have an understanding of nervous system literacy. Because one small shift in our breath changes the entire room. I'd like you to recognize that communication is everything. And communication is often looked at as a soft skill. Communication, when done right, is absolute economic leverage. And that's what gets me excited. That's why I started my company, because I would see these brilliant people with their presentations and their products and their services ready for offer, and they would miss the mark on receiving that funding, on closing that sale, on making sure that they were getting onto the largest stages that they could. How many of you out there are solo entrepreneurs? You're artists, you're coaches, you have yourself wearing many, many hats, yes? Thank you. And how many of you run a business with additional people? 2 people, 200 people, somewhere in between. How valuable would effectively articulating the value proposition of your company be? And that is what we're going to get into today. So we do not have a lot of time here today. My intention is to give you as much as I can. And so we're going to take it back and we are going to work through the 3 buckets that I alluded to just earlier. 5% words, 30 to 35% voice, and 50 to 55% body language. And I'm going to be able to share with you here various line items that I'd love for you to write down and again take with you. How does that sound so far? Good. Okay, so words. I talked about we have 6 seconds to capture someone's attention, but that's not even the fun part. The fun part is it's actually a half a second to make a first impression. Why? Because after 2 seconds, that first impression starts to tend towards the negative. So in a half a second, we are scanning the energy field of the person across from us. Not simply what they're saying, not simply how they're saying it, but how they're being. How many of you remember Terminator 2? Think back to Terminator 2. Do you remember that scene in Terminator where Arnold Schwarzenegger is outside of a bar and this big guy comes out to fight him? And Arnold puts on his glasses, and those glasses give a rundown of all the metrics of the person he's about to fight: his weight, his height, his demeanor, all of that. And it gave Arnold Schwarzenegger insight on, hey, the velocity of the punch, what can he expect? Our subconscious scans for that automatically. Now, the interesting thing is that thoughts transfer 930,000 times quicker than our words. 930,000 times quicker than our words. So if we are feeling doubtful, if we are feeling fear, if we are feeling nervous, that is transferring to the person we're about to speak to without us even knowing it, but with them being perceptive enough to pick it up. And so what we want to do is we want to take communication, learn to move it away from being a stressor to being stabilizing force. As Caroline alluded to in her talk, honesty, yes, and authenticity. Authenticity. Again, we are all being oversold. I had a fancy presentation put together today, I'll be honest, and my slides and my steps and a bunch of things that you could look at and write. And I went to bed last night and I thought, that's not feeling authentic in 2026 anymore. What feels authentic to me is coming here today and simply having a conversation with you, allowing me to share my knowledge on how the landscape is changing and how we can support each other and lock arms to be able to move through it. Because we've got to be honest, this is one heck of a strange world we're living in, and we are moving quicker than we have ever moved before. How can we leverage and anchor the authentic us, the magnetism that is us? Confidence, yes. Confident people get further in life. They just do. That is a fact. But confidence can be learned. Charisma. Charisma might be my favorite. Why? Because charisma, when you peel back the layers of the onion, is nothing more than simply personal magnetism. How many of you think of charisma as, oh, I've got a friend who wears a red hat and is all flashy? And, I'm not like that. I'm a little more subdued. I'm a little more introverted. How many of you are a little flashy? Put your hands up and you like that. And how many of you are a little more subdued? I'm going to share with you in just a few moments the spectrum of charisma and the 4 archetypes that you can position yourself across to not work on becoming someone you're not, but to work on doubling down on who you are. How many of you are familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk, right? Multi-million dollar media empire. Gary has a philosophy, and I agree with his philosophy. The philosophy is, for those of you who may not know it, the philosophy is double down on what you're good at. Don't spend a lot of time working on what you're not good at. Double down on what you're good at. And so we have designed, when I work with clients, what we call a CCC ratio: charisma, communication, and confidence. And it allows us to assess, what do you lead with? Do you lead with confidence? Do you lead with charisma? Are you one of those people with some pink hair and some flashiness? Or is your charisma subdued? Are you somebody that leads with communication? Are you a communication master wordsmith? And if you are, fantastic. How do we double down on that? So before we get to the CCC ratio, I do want to talk again about the various buckets. Why? Because when you master communication, you allow yourself the competitive edge. I asked before, how many of you have been feeling stuck? How many are ready to really catapult past the competition in 2026? To use communication as a strategic advantage, as a competitive edge for what you're doing. And at the end of this, I'd also like to share some media training tips. How many of you are out there right now doing podcasts, doing radio shows, speaking on stages? How many of you would like to do more of that? Well, it's my pleasure to share, after years in the media space, some media training tips with you. And so when we work with clients, we allow an opportunity to assess where they're at with their business, where they're at with their vision and their goals, and where they'd like to go, and deliver tools for that. But I digress. I will get into some information for you here, and I'd like you to write it down. So 5% words. We want to talk about power of words, power of phrases. What can you say? What can you change in your language that allows for a neurolinguistic subconscious rapport? Why do we care about charisma? We care about charisma because it builds rapport. It allows us to create relationships with people within a half a second, like we talked about, that will move the needle. How can we use our language, our voice, our body to not only create persuasion in someone, but to influence the decision? And one of the ways is with our words. So what I'd like you to write down are some substitution phrases. Again, I'd like to give you as much as I can, and I want to sprinkle it across. So take this for a moment. Most of us as women, tend to say, I'm sorry a lot. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I'm bugging you. I'm sorry, do you have a moment? I'm sorry I was late. What that does is it automatically subordinates your energy. I would like you from this point forward to take the word I'm sorry and substitute it for the words thank you. Thank you. Imagine you're running late for a meeting. You walk in, everyone's waiting, and you rush in. I'm so sorry. There was traffic, and my daughter spilled her hot chocolate all over the back seat. And I'm sorry, I'm here. And you come in with that flustered energy, with that subordinate energy, with that I did something incorrect energy. Now imagine for a moment that you walked in. You want to acknowledge that you're late, yes. Again, authenticity. We want to be real. how much more effective is the energy behind, "Thank you so much for your patience. You know, there was traffic, my daughter spilled her hot chocolate in the back seat, and yada, yada, yada. Thank you." You knock on a colleague's door. "Hey, Jane, thank you for a couple of minutes. I have a question." Versus, "Hey, Jane, I'm so sorry to bother you." And shrinking, 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 shrinking. Keep the energy high and give them a nugget. Thank them for their presence. Thank them for their patience. Thank them for their understanding. Does that make sense? Excellent. So words can be used to shift the dynamic, again, to allow you to better attain what it is you want, to gain that trust, that credibility. Why? Because people buy from people they like. People buy from people they trust. I'd like to go back to that half a second that I mentioned earlier. Within a half a second, our bodies are scanning just like Arnold Schwarzenegger's. We are looking for four things subconsciously. And I'd like you to write these down. Within a half a second, our bodies, our brains, our auras are scanning the other person for, are they a friend? Are they a friend? Is this someone that is intriguing to me, that I feel comfortable with, that I'm curious about, that I'd perhaps like to be friendly with? Would I like to do business with them? Am I open to exploring more? Are they a friend? The second one is, are they a foe? Is there something here that's not feeling right? Is there a threat? Should I be nervous? Should I brace myself for fight or flight, right? Are they a foe? The next one is, are they girl, guy, girl, you do your thing. Doesn't matter to me. Are they a potential sexual partner? Yes, we are constantly scanning to see where people are. We have a question now from Rima, and she says, "Why do only a small percentage of people have access to these high-level communication strategies?" Because most people are not taught how to communicate effectively. How many people in school, in high school, have been taught how to move the needle on charisma, persuasion, and influence? And going back to what I was just talking about, we have that half a second who, are they a friend? Are they a foe? Are they a sexual partner? And third, sometimes there's neutrality. That is our opportunity, our window to move that needle. So, with these communication strategies we are going to be sharing with you, we can absolutely move the needle. And if you've gone through high level leadership training, high level neurosomatic work, you may have been educated on this before. If you have not, then all of it can be a new experience and some new training for you. And that is my goal today. So we have a question from Dr. Kruti, and the question is, who can benefit most from learning these exclusive communication strategies? You know, it is imperative that we build the rapport, and that's where the communication comes in. I'm going to give you an example. Who can benefit? Absolutely everybody. We could teach this to a 12-year-old and have them change the course of their life. Why? Because again, people are looking to do business with people they like. How do you build that rapport? That rapport creates trust. The rapport creates loyalty. And that is what allows your business to grow and allows you to share your resources, your brilliance, your expertise in moving the needle for someone else. So think about this. I'm going to give you an example. Our words allow us to create a movie, a commercial for our brand inside the mind of the person we're speaking with. It allows us to become the director. And once we use our words in a fashion that we are directing the movie inside the mind of someone else, we have that opportunity to brand a future, an impelling future for them. I'd like you to think about a purple elephant. Okay, imagine for a moment there's a purple elephant. Okay, now imagine suddenly that purple elephant turned blue. What did everyone here just do? You saw a purple elephant. Why? Because I used my words to implant that thought into your brain. Okay, and when we use our words, even though it's 5% of what we do, we can learn to master and punch and support certain words and phrases. How many of you have ever complimented somebody, genuinely complimented? And you say, okay, let's see, let's pick someone. Charlotte. Charlotte's on the line with us. Charlotte, what a great blouse you're wearing. And Charlotte's answer is going to be, why, thank you. And there's not much more going on there. Why? Because I have just complimented an inanimate object. Charlotte, I like your blouse. Charlotte says, thank you. But watch this. If I say to Charlotte, Charlotte, can I tell you something? And I lean in. I've now created a little curiosity with Charlotte. She's curious what I'm going to ask. Charlotte, can I tell you something? Charlotte says, sure. You have excellent taste in clothing. That is one beautiful blouse. Now you see Charlotte light up like a Christmas tree. Why? Because I complimented her. I complimented her sense of fashion and then alluded to the inanimate object. Does that make sense? So when we work with you and we train together, we teach you ways to build that rapport as authentically as possible. I do want to move on now to the voice and the voice tonality. Charlotte has a question. Charlotte, now that I have complimented your blouse, Charlotte asks, how can the next generation develop powerful communication skills to achieve excellence in their careers? By investing in themselves, by investing in training at this level. Traditional communication, the communication of 2012, the communication of 2018, even the communication of 2023, it no longer works. Our nervous systems cannot keep up to what's going on. We must learn to use neurosomatic literacy when we communicate, because again, it's not about what we're saying or how we're saying it. It's about how it is being perceived. We focus on creating presence in real time. We focus on using the power of your words, your voice, your tonality, all of it to keep somebody focused on the relationship. And so the question that I have for you is, how many men right now are watching the audience? Men, if you are married, put your hand up for me. And if you're not, that's okay. Have you ever had a girlfriend or an ex? All right, gentlemen, if you ask your wife or your partner, honey, are you mad? And she looks at you and goes, yep. You're listening to the tone, correct? There's something there that is alerting you to the fact that she's not very happy. When you use tonality, there is a band between 0 and 10. Okay, 0 and 10. Most people speak on a band of 2 to 3. That's socially acceptable. I'd like you to think of your voice as a guitar with guitar strings. And as you play that guitar, you have a window of variance. You can take it from a 0 to a 10 to a 2 to a 3. How? By using the pace. Are you talking really, really fast and somebody's not really able to keep up? And what exactly is the proper pace for pacing? Well, the proper pace for trying to keep up with somebody is 170 to 190 words a minute. When you work with us, we train you on keeping that pace. Because I'll tell you something, there is a difference in communicating. It's something we call mirror and match. Mirror and match. When you're speaking to somebody, a Wall Street broker or a real estate agent in Manhattan, you can bet that they're going pretty fast. It's a very different pace vocally than someone from Georgia or, Alabama, who's a little slower and a little more in tune with how things are happening. We will allow you to use your voice, learn resonance. Ladies, this is something I'd like you to keep in mind. It has been proven that trust accelerates. Trust accelerates when? When your voice deepens. When your voice deepens. When you speak from the diaphragm. The movie Batman, right? Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne does his thing, and the minute he transforms into Batman, what happens? He puts on the cape, he puts on the mask, and what happens? His voice deepens. Why? Because he is indicating hero. He's indicating trust. He's indicating, I have your back. We as women have to be conscious about dropping our voices into our diaphragms, because when we get nervous, our voices tend to squeak up a little bit. And so there are several exercises with voice and diaphragm that we can use. Next, I want to touch on body language. Okay, body language. How do you use your body language to convey authority? Okay, confidence. Confidence is shown through body language, and it is the biggest conveyance of posture. Can anyone tell me who the most powerful person in the room is? The most powerful person in the room is he or she who has the calmest breathing. Think of a king and the king's court, and all the people that work with him and for him are scurrying around. The court jester and the serving maids and the knights coming in. Everyone is rushing, rushing, rushing. The king is what? The king is poised. The king is calm. And there is a neuroendocrine, which means mind to hormonal shift that happens depending on the pose that you take, depending on the posture you're holding, that can either accelerate cortisol and adrenaline or can lower it. And a lot of that has to do with the way you stand, the way you breathe. There are certain ways that you can position your hands that allow for trust. And I'm going to share some of these with you today because I feel that they're important. So when it comes to conveying body language, there's something we want, which is called having mind-body coherence. Mind-body coherence. If I'm saying the stock price is raised, but my hand is going down, or stock price is raised, right? Stock price is raised. I'm saying something that is incongruent with what I'm showing. If I'm doing a presentation, I say the stock price is raised and my hand is going up and out, there's congruence between what just came out of my mouth and what my body is doing. If I say the stock price is raised and I'm lowering my hand, suddenly there's a disconnect. There's a disconnect between what's coming out of my mouth and what the person across from me is observing. When that happens, there is an erosion of trust. Okay? And so top performers learn, to Mary's question, top performers learn how to manage their hands in a way that allows people to have a better sense of trust. And I'm going to share some of these hand motion body languages with you right now. So I'd like to speak about 3 different planes, like a plateau, if you will. The first one is called the ecstatic plane. The ecstatic plane. The ecstatic plane is from your neck upwards. What happens in the ecstatic plane? Well, it's sort of self-explanatory. The ecstatic plane allows you to be ecstatic, right? Think about, I just won gold at the Olympics. Your hands go up into the ecstatic plane. I'm excited. We just won a gold. We just won an Oscar. We are demonstrating by the position of our hands that level of excitement. We are communicating. Now, is using the ecstatic plane always for happy excitement? No, because what happens if there's a fire, run, right? Our hands are going up here. We rarely will use the ecstatic plane when we're in a client meeting or pitching our services. It's intended to be ecstatic, exclamating. Where most effective communicators learn to position their hands is in the next 2 planes. So the second one that I'd like you to write down and that I'd like to teach you about is what we call the passion plane, the passion plane. And the passion plane goes from the neck to about the bottom of the breast. And again, for those of you that are astute, you can figure out why the passion plane is because that's where our heart is located. When we speak, we want to speak in an audience-centric manner. Audience-centric. Less about us, more about the person we're speaking with, right? We want to ask them questions. We want to learn about them. I'm sad that this is a one-way street here, and I do appreciate all your questions. Had we been in a room together, it would have been much more interactive. And the intention is to learn about who you are versus what I'm selling. So one of the ways we can do that is by touching the passion plane, okay? If I'm speaking to you about something that I'm really, really, really positive about, curious about, loving, I will touch my hands briefly to the passion plane, okay? What we want to avoid, however, is keeping our hands on the passion plane. Because if we keep our hands here in the passion plane for too long, my hand is now on my heart. For those of you who might be listening on audio, I am now running the risk of disconnecting from the person I'm speaking with. Why? Because if my hands are in the passion plane for too long, I make it about me. The key to using the passion plane, and you see this with politicians that are kissing babies, they talk about all the things they're going to love to do for the community, right? It's a touch, open, touch, open. And finally, that brings us to the third plane, which is where I would urge you to keep your hands 80 to 85% of the time. I'm going to shift my camera slightly here so that you can see me. The truth plane is from the breastbone down to your belly button. And here is where you want your hands positioned. You would like open palms and open hand. Why? Because when we keep our hands open in a position from the truth plane, we are subconscious signaling back to the days of the caveman, what? That we have no weapon. We are trustworthy. We're not holding our hands behind our back. We're not keeping them in our pockets. We have our hands open and out so that people recognize subconsciously that we have nothing of a threat to them. But they're also recognizing, because by keeping our hands open in the truth plane, what are we doing? We are exposing all of the sensitive parts of our body. Our jugular, right? You've heard the phrase, go for the jugular, right? If somebody cuts into our neck here, we will die immediately. If they stab us in the heart, if they stab us in the gut, these are sensitive areas. By keeping your hands open, you are conveying a sense of confidence. I am so confident in who I am and what I'm doing that I am not fearful of what you or your team can do to me. And these things are, again, the mind-body coherence that allows you to transfer and move the needle on that person wanting to be your friend. Not a foe, not a sexual partner, not indifference, but a friend. That will make all the difference. Is this making sense? I hope so. Content delivery has been important in the past. Yes, we want to talk about our specs, our technicals, the benefits that people are going to get. But talking about content assumes a linear attention span. And again, as we talked about at the beginning of this session, attention spans are no longer linear. We are simply living in a world where skepticism is high. Everyone is being sold. Attention is fragmented. We must capture that attention. And how do we do it? We create clarity through noise. How do you create clarity? And one of those ways is to treat objections not as a no, but as a signal to continue the conversation. The CCC ratio, I'd like to come back to that for those of you that might be curious. There are 4 archetypes to successful charismatic leaders. The 4 archetypes, and I'd like you to think about which one of these might resonate the most with you. Because again, there is a spectrum of charisma. And when you understand where you are on the spectrum, you can learn how to double down on what you are and how you offer. So the first one that I'd like to share with you is something called the spellbinder. The spellbinder. These are people that are masters with their words. Think John F. Kennedy, the original. Think Martin Luther King. Think Oprah Winfrey, right? They use their words to hypnotize almost. And people are very attracted to the language that they're sharing. Spellbinders, right? Some of you who are wordsmiths, who are really great at communication, can consider yourselves to be spellbinders. The second charismatic archetype is something we call the chutzpah. Yes, the chutzpah. The chutzpah is somebody that has a lot of guts. Are you a lot of guts? Now, love them or hate them, it's a very, very strange world out there. But some could argue that, international leaders like Putin or Donald Trump are charismatic with chutzpah. I was born and raised in Canada, so I'm going to stay out of that one. But that's an example to show you somebody that goes in and really goes guns a-blazing with what they believe and how they communicate. The third one is something we call joie de vivre. Joie de vivre. For my friends in France right now, you will understand it is a zest for life. They are people that are happy, that are fun. There's something about them that just seems so jovial. They're vibrating on a level that you want to have a piece of. Think Aretha Franklin, Robin Williams. These were people that were just fun. The fourth one is the one that I'd like you to pay attention to. And the fourth one is for all of my quieter, more introverted audience members right now. If you relate to being a little more introverted, please put your hand up. The fourth one is grace. Grace. There is just a fierce benevolence. Princess Diana. Gandhi. Gandhi, here was a man with no resources, with a very small physical persona, and yet with his graceful charisma, he managed to mobilize 200 million people peacefully to overthrow the British Empire. There is an immense amount of power in grace. And so when we work together, we go through the CCC ratio to understand how you might be perceived by others. So the key to this is not what do you think that you are? It's how are you perceived by others? And I'll give you an example. And this is something that I'd like you to do. I'd like you to this weekend, identify 3 people you trust. They could be family members, they can be colleagues, 3 people that you trust, and ask them, share these 4 archetypes with them, and ask them to give you feedback on which of these you lean towards. Now, a lot of people are a mix of 2, usually 2, typically not 3. Some people are very strong in one area, but typically most of us will have a combination of 2. And I'd like you to ask them how they see you versus how you've identified yourself. And I'll tell you, when I did this exercise for the first time, we developed it, I had identified myself as a spellbinder. Why? Because I'm in communications. I'm a professionally trained media, on-camera media personality. I have interviewed Sharon Stone and Sting and Winona Ryder. I'm a small town girl from Calgary that made her dreams come true. I'm a spellbinder, okay? And yet, when I asked my friends and family, 2 out of the 3 people I spoke with identified me as a chutzpah. And I thought, me? A chutzpah? And they said, yes, Katerina, you have lived in Hong Kong. You have moved to countries where you don't know the language. You have developed and built several companies. You have chutzpah. You come across with chutzpah. You come across with big energy. And I thought, wow, that's unique and interesting. So I would invite you to share these 4 charismatic archetypes with your family and friends and get a reading from them on how they see you. We don't have a lot of time together. I hope that this is making sense to you. And what I'd like to do now is share some media training tips for you. How many of you out there would like to get onto more stages? would like to get onto and in front of the camera, what I'd like to do is go into something I call your sound bites. Your sound bites. Why are sound bites important? Again, sound bites are important because we are living in a world of fractured attention. People are looking for the next shiny thing, and they can only, especially the newer generation, absorb information in tiny bouts. Now, people think of sound bites as being only for politicians or possibly for actors when they're doing a press junket. Sound bites are incredibly important to how you communicate your business. Why? Because if you're out in the media interviewing and having conversations, you're at the mercy of the host. And sometimes you'll land on a great host, and sometimes you'll land on somebody that does not know what they're doing. They are not equipped to be leading a conversation. If you are simply reactive to their questions, then you run the risk of not taking full advantage of the platform that you're on. How can you take full advantage of the platform that you're on? By developing your sound bites. Now, I had a client, this was years ago, and she was in line to buy the new iPhone. It was one of the new iPhones that had come out, and she was in line waiting. In line, she struck a conversation with the person in front of her and spoke to that person about her business in sound bites. She ended up leaving the store not only with her iPhone, but having sold 200 books and securing a contract for a speaking engagement. It is imperative that we get your sound bites down. Now, these are different than your hook. And we'll talk about a hook in a moment. Your sound bites, I'd like you to think of 4 things. And we develop these with you when we work together with media training and our communication clients. And again, as we mentioned, 90% of Fortune 500 CEOs cannot effectively explain what their company actually does. And studies show that 85% of financial success comes from your ability to showcase your proposition. Okay, so 90% can't do it, even though 85% of your value, your sales, come from your ability to do so. One of the things that helps when you're out into the marketplace are your sound bites. So I'd like you to write these down. Your sound bites should be, number 1, unique to you or your brand. Unique to you and your brand. The second one, it should be captivating. Create curiosity. Is it pulling me in? The third one is, should be a little disruptive. It should be something that they haven't heard, not a cliche, something that allows you to say, hey, the communication landscape is changing. It is no longer about how you're talking, but how you're being perceived. Traditional is dead. We are now moving fast. And the fourth one, it should be retweetable. Okay, back before X was called Twitter, retweetable. What does that mean? 3 to 5 to 7 words, okay? Short, tight, short, tight. And what you want to do is you want to repeat these to everyone you meet at the grocery line, at the iPhone store, when you're on a podcast. These are your sound bites. This is what allows you to really share who you are and what you're about. And so I see Melinda coming back on, and I do want to express to everybody that in order to establish authority in the world that we're living in, we need to do so quickly. We need to capture attention in that half a second. We have 6 seconds to keep their attention with our body language, with our posture, with our words, with our sound bites. And so what I'd like to do is invite everyone, I have just one offer, invite everyone to join me, if you'd like, for a call. I'm happy to use my expert background, my expert opinion to help you assess where you're at and how you are going to be best served positioning yourself in your business. Is it high-level communication training? We work with high net worth individuals to strategically secure and position their language for continued growth. Is it in a group cohort where you simply want to learn new tactics, new trips, and test them out on each other, make some new friends in the business, make some new colleagues, and potentially share business ideas? Or is it that you are actively seeking more media attention, more stages? What do you wear? How do you position your body? And so if we can put up the QR code here, how can I share a resource, Melinda, so that people can take a snapshot and book a call with me if they'd like to? I would invite everybody to email me directly if you would like.
Katerina, sorry to interrupt you. It's already out of time. It's 51.
Yes.
Yeah.
I,
Other speaker is also waiting in the line. Yeah. If
sure.
you can wrap it up by sharing your details and everything.
Let me just share my screen a moment. And I'd like to put up my QR code just for a moment here, so that people can take that snapshot and take that picture. Can you see that, Melinda? Let's see. How do we make this big?
Yes, we can see.
Can you share that for me?
Can you please repeat what you are trying to say?
I'd like for the QR code to appear on the screen.
Okay. Yeah, you can put it in the chat, ma'am.
How do I do that? Okay.
No, if you share your screen, people can take the screenshot from there.
Yeah, I did share my screen.
Yeah, but it's not that much clear. Can you please share again?
Can I do which?
Yeah.
Do the screen?
Otherwise, I will share from my side. Okay.
Yeah, if you can share it from your side, Melinda, that would be great.
Yeah, sure.